you're recording a thumbnail. I thought this would be cute to use for it. I felt so bad for him. Nobody wanted him and he was the last one left. I was like, I'll buy you, I'll save you. It's cute, right? Hi everybody. Special shout out to my cousin Aubrey. And excuse the hot mess that is my hair. I clearly didn't wash it yesterday. Anyways, happy February. It felt like January lasted for about 3 years. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned codependency, and I didn't really go into too much depth, so let's talk about it today. People tend to associate codependency with addiction. They're not wrong, but it isn't just limited to addiction. So first, let's define codependency. Very simply put, codependent relationships involve one individual revolving their entire life around another person. It's when a person mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually sometimes relies on another person. And that person could be their partner, a family member, or even just a friend. And usually in codependent relationships, we see a giver and a taker. It's an emotional and behavioral condition. It's a learned behavior that can be passed down from generation to generation. You may have also heard it be referred to as relationship addiction. Codependency was first identified when studying the interpersonal relationships between people with alcohol dependency and their family members. But now it covers a much larger spectrum. A misconception about codependent relationships or codependent people are that they're very clingy. No, it goes far beyond clinginess. And another misconception is that it only involves romantic partners. False. It could be between family members or friends. Doesn't have to be romantic. And important to note, it's not something you're clinically diagnosed with. It isn't a personality disorder, but it can overlap with other potential personality disorders. However, it does relate to your attachment style that you developed as a child. So a minute ago, I brought up the taker and the giver, right? The codependent person is considered the giver. They need to feel needed. They make sacrifices for the taker, who is also known as the enabler. So how do we differentiate between codependent and dependent? Just because you have caring feelings or behaviors does not mean you're in a codependent relationship. It's when it becomes excessive and you lose your sense of self. Depending on another person can be considered positive, but codependence is considered harmful. And honestly, the giver may not even realize it either. Some people may just enjoy the feeling of being relied on or giving their love. So, okay, for example, when two people are dependent, their relationship is a mutual priority, but they can also find happiness outside of the relationship. They have other relationships with other people, they have hobbies, they have other friends, and they have a lot of different personal interests. Codependent individuals lack their own identity outside of the relationship they're in. Another example is when two dependent people rely on each other for support and love. They value each other and they consider themselves equal. In codependent relationships, it's always one-sided around needs, comfort, attention, love, and support. But just remember, one or both individuals can be codependent. But what we typically see is the codependent person neglecting other areas of their life and putting their partner first, or they're neglecting other areas of their life for their partner. I'm also not saying it's the fault of just one person either. Again, there's the enabler, and if you don't know if you're enabling or what enabling is, feel free to watch this video. But seriously, it's equally dysfunctional when you hold that role too. Eventually, the relationship becomes so one-sided because you end up relying on your partner for all of those needs. You rely on the neediness and the sacrifices of your codependent partner. So tell me how you're going to learn how to be in an equal, two-sided relationship from that. So, what are some common symptoms of codependency? It can be really difficult to distinguish between someone who is clingy and one who is codependent. But there are some fairly common signs. The first one could be they don't find happiness outside of the relationship. They tend to stay in unhealthy or toxic relationships even when they are aware that they are in that situation. Regardless of the damage that it does to themselves, they will do anything to satisfy their partner. Commonly, you'll also find that they're very anxious about their relationship failing. They tend to do whatever their partner says and ignore their own morals. And honestly, sometimes you'll find that they claim that their life is meaningless without the relationship. So, okay, take a second to process all of that, because that's a lot. It's so much bigger than what we think. And I'm sure by just hearing a few of those, maybe even just one or two, you either know someone that has been in a situation like that or you yourself have been in a situation like that. It's very common. One really big internal struggle that people who are codependent face, it's that idea of separating from their enabler. Because without them, who are they? Where are they gonna go in life? That's their way of thinking. They believe that their identity is attached to the relationship. But I mean, in healthy relationships, both parties are expected to put in equal effort, right? Just saying. So what you may see is that codependent individuals have a lot of issues functioning independently. And then from that, starts that cycle of codependency. So you may or may not be wondering, how do codependent relationships develop? Unfortunately, it's impossible for me to sit here and name all and any possible reason out there, but it does stem from a range of situations. But what we do know is that codependency is a learned behavior, and that learned behavior comes from past experiences, past traumas, or even them being exposed to behavioral patterns. A handful of research states that when adults are codependent, it may stem from issues with their parents. Like when they were a child or a teenager, they may have had a difficult parental relationship, which causes a gap in emotional development. And then when they're older, they seek out relationships with others to fill that gap. But the problem is that when these relationships develop, it hurts both people in that relationship. That's why, in my opinion, it's so important to talk about relationship expectations very early on. That way you avoid that dynamic becoming imbalanced. And those expectations or boundaries are then addressed, and then you avoid either feeling underappreciated or overexerted. And we don't need that trouble down the line, so do your future self a favor and set the tone in the beginning. Also, if you've watched my past videos, you will definitely see where I'm going with this. They all tie in together. So what do you do if you are in a codependent relationship? First things first, recognize your role. Are you an enabler or are you the codependent individual? Self-awareness is key here. And if you have some sort of realization of what your role is, don't wait until your life starts to fall apart to make change. Second, acknowledge it in your relationship. Have an honest conversation with your partner about the behaviors and emotions that you're seeing and how they affect you. But really important and crucial to do, approach the conversation with kindness. It is the worst thing to feel like you are the reason for the relationship to not be at its strongest. And remember, a lot of times people do not realize what they're doing. So don't attack people, we don't need that. You could also suggest seeking professional help. I know this can be very intimidating because for some reason, people just don't want to seek professional help. But please remember that whether or not your partner seeks treatment, those boundaries still need to be set for your own well-being. And last, in the case that your mental health is being affected, determine and be real if whether or not the relationship is worth maintaining. Yes, it is possible to overcome codependency, but some situations may be much more difficult from others. Know your limits, know your boundaries. Walk away when you need to. Just try to be very proactive in finding redirection. But just remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to your mind, and be kind to your partner, family member, or friend, or any of the people that you know that are experiencing any kind of codependent relationship. So yeah, that's about it. Again, like I say in every video, to my favorite 4 people that probably watch this, it is to open a discussion on a very difficult topic that I feel a lot of us don't want to talk about, but it's very important that we do. And also, these are just my own individual thoughts. I have done my own research. I would love to hear your thoughts about it, so if you'd like to, feel free to reach out, feel free to comment, do whatever you want to do that makes you feel good. Per usual, subscribe if you'd like. If not, I totally understand, but feel free to also follow me on Instagram. My handle is Intricate. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next one. Thank you!